Illinois versus Purdue, a battle of two different teams, a battle of two different coaches, a battle of two different styles. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome welcome all to another edition of Locked On Illini. Thank you all so much for making us your first watch and listen each and every day. My name is Sunny Verma. Feel free to say hello on your favorite social media, whether it's X, Facebook, Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is. I'm on it. Just do a search for Locked On Illini. Send me a message. Say something nice. Say something not so nice. Just keep it constructive. A special shout out today for the first time. The sponsor of this show is Nissan. Today's episode is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week later in this episode. Speaking of this episode, again, it's Illinois versus Purdue week. And I've said this before on previous shows. Shout out to the Big Ten schedule makers, because they've certainly made things interesting in the last 2 weeks of the Big Ten schedule. You've got Michigan and Michigan State probably playing for the Big Ten championship. Again, this recording is being done before the Michigan game, so I apologize if that's spoiled. But also, we're talking about Illinois and Purdue and whether our neighbors to the east are going to admit this or not. The Big Ten Conference has been run by these two programs for essentially the last 4-5 seasons. It's either Matt Painter or Brad Underwood. One wins the conference championship, the other one wins the Big Ten tournament. Last year, obviously, Matt Painter goes to the national championship with Zach Edey. Brad Underwood, we make it to the Elite Eight with Terrence Shannon Jr. and Marcus Damask. And I just want to kind of sit back and reflect today and just talk about the completely different style of team building between these two head coaches, Brad and Matt Painter. Matt, after the previous game, kind of grabbed the mic and talked to the crowd and announced how this Purdue Boilermakers team is now the winningest team in any 5-year stretch in Big Ten history. And, anytime this week happens, I'll be honest, Purdue Boilermaker fans, they tend to find me a little bit more. And when I open up the show and say, hey, if you're an Illini fan, find me on all the social medias, trust me, the Purdue fans already do. And so, there's this natural rivalry between these two programs. And I've got the utmost respect for Matt Painter. And, I do genuinely think he's a top 5-7 coach in the country and what he does with Purdue. And what does he do with Purdue? Matt is a head coach who truly believes in the development of prep prospects. You take a look at their roster this year. They lost, arguably, again, I'm saying arguably, because I know people don't like it when I say this, the greatest college basketball player of all time last year in Zach Edey. And they really didn't supplement that going the transfer portal route. Instead, they brought in, I believe it was 6 freshmen, and all who have roles to play, but they didn't bring any outside help in any sort of way to kind of supplement what they kind of may still need on this team. Brad Underwood went the, dare I say, complete opposite approach. And again, that's what I love about this rivalry, and it is a rivalry, despite what certain people will try to say. It's a complete reversal, 180. You're talking about a guy who it replaced 9 guys on the roster, 10 if you're counting Ty Rodgers from last year's team, and recruited not just freshmen, but also went hard in the transfer portal, which he also did the year before. And again, the funny thing is, over the last 5-6 years, I believe Brad and Matt Painter are tied for wins in this Big Ten Conference. So a question for Illini fans, and I want to know your answer in the comment section. Which way do you prefer? Do you prefer the old school style, Matt Painter bringing in preps and, having them on your roster for 3-4 years and developing them throughout their career and, seeing where that gets you? Or do you like the Brad Underwood? Again, I'm not going to say what he just performed this past season, because I think that was special circumstances of him going very old the year before and having, 5 or 6 guys graduate. And then he had to replace an assistant coach, which meant replacing 2 more guys on the team. But let's just say, if I'm thinking to next year's roster, I would say right now the odds are Brad will replace half the roster for next year's team. And who that half is going to be, I'll say that for a future episode. I have some thoughts. But would you rather build a team from the prep level, from the high school level, and then see where that takes you ceiling-wise? Or do you prefer the Brad route, where you bring in a couple of preps, but then almost choose to be more aggressive when it comes to the transfer portal, or even shifting strategies like Brad? I always commend Brad for doing. Like, he's not someone who's very stubborn. If something is not working, and now I'm not talking about in-game adjustments, guys, okay, before the haters start commenting. I'm talking about big picture. And I don't even think the Brad haters, and there's plenty, especially in the post games, win or lose, believe it or not. I don't think even the Brad haters would say that Brad Underwood isn't an elite program builder. So that's all I'm talking about right now. I'm not talking about anything on the court. I'm not talking about X's and O's. I'm just talking strictly team building. Do you like the Matt Painter route? Do you like the Brad Underwood route? I thought it was really interesting lately. Rick Pitino, he was on, I believe it was Pardon the Interruption, and I believe he said this on other outlets as well. Rick Pitino, arguably the greatest college basketball head coach of all time, is not recruiting freshmen. He, in his own words, says that you can't win it all with freshmen. And I'm going to be honest with you, I kind of agree with him. I think when you take a look at what Brad Underwood said in the offseason, this past offseason, let's just be notable in that regard. He saw UConn up close. And he saw that in order to really win a national championship in modern day, you're going to have some NBA guys on your basketball team. And, that might just end up being more often than not one and done guys. Sure, you can tell me that Matt Painter literally just went to the national championship last season doing what he does. And you're right. But how often is a Zach Edey going to stumble across your program? I mean, think about it. Right now, Matt Painter still has potentially another Big Ten Player of the Year in Braden Smith, potentially 2 All-Americans on his basketball team right now. And yet they only sit 2 games ahead of this Illini basketball team as of this recording. Why? Because some of the other younger players either haven't developed or just aren't ready yet. And that's what I think is the downfall of Matt's route. If Matt Painter is able to make another national championship without Zach Edey, or honestly, maybe that's unfair, make another Final Four run. I'll even think about an Elite 8 run this year. Then maybe I'll kind of entertain changing my mind. But if Big Ten dominance is all that matters, then I think you can be content and you can be okay going the Matt Painter route, the Purdue route, because look, the proof is in the pudding. Now, whether the next 5 years is going to be as golden as the previous 5 were without Zach, maybe not, probably not. Okay, absolutely it will not. But numbers are numbers. And so he recruited Zach, and so I'm going to give him credit for that. But moving forward with NIL being so incredibly important, keep in mind, Purdue had a blue chip prospect coming in Cannon Catchings. And Cannon ultimately decided to go to, I believe it was BYU, just because he had some concerns about playing time. And Matt Painter said, hey, it's better off you go somewhere else. Now, look, if you're old school, you're like, rah, that's awesome. That's how it should always be. But if you're a realist, if you're just thinking logically, that's not how it is anymore. And tell me, can that Purdue team take a look at their roster? I know TKR is fantastic. I know Braden Smith is arguably the player of the year in this conference. But outside that, you don't think they could really use a guy like Cannon Catchings right now? Of course they could. Brad, this year, obviously, I think he hit on the freshmen, absolutely. When you talk about Morez, when you talk about Tommy Kasparis, Will Riley, let me know. Is there any one of those guys that you regret being in an Illinois uniform right now? Of course not. The transfers, arguable, right? You're talking, I don't think anyone's really going to, you have Trey White, you have Ben Hummerkaus, Kylan Boswell, et cetera, et cetera. Whether it's 50-50 on whether you think those players are valuable to this team or not. But I don't think there's a consensus of this guy was a bust. Last year's team, okay, let's keep in mind, Terrence Shannon Jr. was a transfer. Marcus Domask was a transfer. Two guys who are all Big Ten. Well, Terrence should have been. And two of the best players on arguably the best team Illinois has had in, 20 plus years? So, again, there's a balance between the two. And again, I think the question ultimately comes down to, what do you want to experience as a fan? Do you want to consistently win the Big Ten Conference and maybe just have a ceiling? I hope that's fair to say, but I do believe it. And again, my Purdue detractors, if you prove me wrong, please come back, remind me, and badger me. That's fine. Or do you go the alternate route where you do have the occasional one and dones? In this particular case, Illinois is going to have two with Will Riley and Kasper Shakishonis, and give yourself the potential to win a national championship. Now, that means you're going to have down years in the Big Ten. And again, by down years, I'm saying on your down year, you win 20 games. Again, it's not a down year like what Illinois fans used to be experiencing. Now, a down year, just because the talent level is so high with what Brad brings in, your down year is 11 Big Ten wins, 10 Big Ten wins with 20 wins in the season. We don't know what's going to happen in the postseason. I'll be honest, guys. I have the utmost respect for Matt Painter, but I also have the utmost respect for Brad Underwood and Rick Pitino. And to me, I've seen Illinois win the Big Ten Conference, and I enjoy every second of it. I've seen Illinois win Big Ten tournaments, and trust me, I enjoy every second of it. What I would like to see before my time here is done is for Illinois to win a national championship, mainly because we can. Illinois is well equipped when it comes to NIL. Because that's not an excuse for Illinois. We're probably top 10, top 15 in the entire country when it comes to compensating basketball players. We have a guy in charge, Brad Underwood. Now, this is debatable, I understand, who I think can get us to that next level. We're in a conference that's going to give us every opportunity to win the national championship. For me, and again, I might change my mind down the road. I'm not judging it strictly by this season, but I like what Brad's doing. I miss the ideas, and I am very old school in the sense that I'd like to see a freshman come in, be hyped about a freshman, see him get a little bit better, and then take that sophomore leap, and then by his junior year, be one of your best players, and then his senior year, he's your guy, he's your all Big Ten guy. I admit I missed that development, but maybe it's just I've gotten older. I want Illinois to play amongst the best, against the best. And for once, it's Sweet 16. I want to make that a consistent return, but I do want a chance to that, hey, if we go up against one of a UConn or a North Carolina, a Duke, a team that's loaded with prospects, stud, future guys I'm going to see in the NBA. I want Illinois to be in that group. I like the idea that 5-6 years from now, when I'm putting on a random NBA game, there's going to be one or two Illinois guys playing on the court or sitting on the bench. I think that's just good for the program. I think that brings our prestige level up, and ultimately that just brings the value of this program. I want to hear your thoughts. I know I can certainly see it both ways. Again, this is no disrespect to Matt Painter. I think Matt Painter is one of the 5-7 best coaches in the country. And if we had Matt Painter as our coach, I think I would be content with what Matt Painter does as a coach. But we don't. We have Brad Underwood. I saw what happened against UConn last year. More importantly, Brad Underwood saw what happened against UConn last year. And I think with Brad's style, you have a higher chance to win a national championship. Let me know your thoughts. The Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our locked-on college basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart, from top-seeded stars to the unexpected upsets. These guys showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada and clear-cut Team of the Week are the Houston Cougars. Since joining the Big 12 last season, the Cougars have gone a combined 33-4 in conference games, winning the regular season title by multiple games both years. There's no team in college basketball that more capably embodies the rugged Armada than Kelvin Sampson's squad. Gross. Houston's tenacious defense leads the nation in fewest points allowed per game for the second straight season. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what the Houston Cougars have done here. It's clear that our Team of the Week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of the Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. Welcome back, and if you hadn't already, make sure you hit that like button and hit that subscribe button on this channel. We continue to grow through March. I know we got an action-packed month ahead, but already we're the second biggest Illini-based YouTube channel around, and we're fast growing on the audio side as well. So make sure you share this to other Illini fans in your life as we continue to grow our community. The other topic, which was discussed in the Locked On Illini Discord, link in the chat, by the way, was Morez Johnson. On Monday, Brad Underwood said that Morez Johnson's cast was off. Now, again, none of us are doctors, okay? I'm about a decade's worth of school and a couple of degrees away from my medical degrees. But just for the sake of conversation, us in the Pizza Hut Club, which is what we call our Discord, discussed when's the right time to bring Morez Johnson back. Let's just say he's 80% healthy on Friday morning. Do you let him play against Purdue with the way this team has been playing, with how valuable Morez Johnson is? Or do you wait to let him get a little bit more healthy and give him another week's rest almost and let him play first in the Big Ten tournament? Or do you just bypass both and wait for Morez to heal completely and play in the NCAA tournament? This is a interesting question, and one which I've gone back and forth with trying to decide. Now, if Morez is 100% healthy on Friday morning, I don't think there's any point to debating whether he should be playing. Of course he should be playing. Morez offers a game that nobody on your roster can duplicate. And he's not someone that you really have to change much around when it comes to an offensive game plan, because he's not a guy you throw the ball into to get points. In fact, what he does is he rebounds your misses and the other team's misses and gives you more possessions. That's what this team thrives on. But do you change the starting lineup a little bit? Do you reinsert Morez Johnson, even though Trey White has excelled since he's been placed in that starting lineup? I don't think so. I think right now we're at the point where we have a good thing going, and you keep Trey in and you bring Morez off the bench. And you know what? Honestly, it gives you more flexibility, because right now the way we have it is if Ivisic gets into foul trouble, well, the opposing team, not named Michigan, can take advantage of that and take advantage of this weakness on the Illini team. But if every single time on the basketball court, Illinois has either Ivisic or Morez Johnson on the court, you know how troublesome that is for any opponent? It was one of our best lineups all season long analytically when Morez and Tommy Ivisic were playing together. So maybe you close the game out with that lineup, but I don't think you change much. So what if he's 80% healthy? And again, these are not reported numbers. I'm being completely honest with you. I'm throwing out these numbers for the sake of conversation. Let's say he's 80%. Do you play him against Purdue? I guess the question is, how important is this Purdue game to you? You need a victory in order to not be the 8th seed in the Big Ten tournament. But again, how important is that? Is it important to beat Purdue? Of course, 100%. Quite honestly, if you ask me before this year, before last year, and before next season, what's the one game I want to make sure I can guarantee a 100% victory in? It's always going to be Purdue for the foreseeable future, just because of the rivalry I discussed in the previous segment. But when I take my fan cap off and I just try to think, put my logical cap on, the NCAA tournament is the most important for me. And while I do think he needs some run, I'm okay if missing one game against Purdue gives him 5 more days of rest and he can be at 90, maybe 95% healthy in the Big Ten tournament. I think that's where the ideal situation is to bring Morez back. Give him hopefully more than one day of playing. We'll see how Illinois fares next week. But, if it is 2-3 games, Morez is the type of guy who can batter the opponent, just because of how strong and physical he is. When you're playing basketball for the third game in a row and you're trying to guard Morez Johnson, I mean, that's stressful for you. The key is with Morez is he didn't injure his core or his leg, right? It was his wrist. And Morez, how do I describe this? The wrist isn't a huge part of Morez Johnson's game. It's not, his game is about power. It's about leverage. And so having that wrist be his injury might be one of the better scenarios that could have happened to Illinois and Morez and the near future of this basketball team. So the more I think about it, if he's completely healthy, you play him against Purdue. If there's even a 20-25% chance of him re-aggravating that injury against Purdue, let's be honest, guys. Illinois, Purdue, as I said before in the previous segment, and as I said 10 seconds ago, this is a rivalry. Okay, the teams are going to get chippy. It's at State Farm Center. The crowd is going to get rowdy. It's going to get loud. I don't trust Purdue players to not take a swipe here and there on Morez, knowing the circumstances, because that's what good coaching does. If it's not illegal, that's what you probably should do. Do I want to risk Morez missing the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament by further aggravating that injury? I don't. I think he's way too important, and silly me still thinks this team has way too high of a ceiling. So for me, you rest Morez against Purdue unless he's 100% and you get him ready for the Big Ten tournament. Let's do it that way. I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you guys think he's ready to go? If he's ready to go against Purdue, do you play him right away? What if he's 75%? What percentage would it take for you to feel comfortable to play Morez Johnson? Or some of you might just be like, none of this matters. Even the Big Ten tournament at this point doesn't matter. There's an argument out there that going far in the Big Ten tournament, playing 4 days straight actually detracts from your abilities the following weekend in the NCAA tournament. So a lot of people, especially since we've already won the Big Ten tournament a couple of times now, have zero interest and honestly wouldn't even mind going out after a game or two. I want to hear your thoughts. Again, I think it's an interesting situation that Brad's in. I haven't heard anything one way or the other. It's just nice that we're talking about Morez Johnson coming back again, because just a couple weeks ago, we thought it might have been the last time we saw him in an orange and blue uniform. And that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Locked On Illini. I thank you all so much for your continued support of the program. I hope you get better, Ayo Dosunmu. Unfortunately, he's going to be out for the season for the Chicago Bulls, and now I officially have zero reason to watch the Bulls. Apparently he's had a shoulder injury that's been lingering for almost a year, if not 2 years, I think he talked about in an interview, and that's, of course, a cause of concern. But hopefully he gets some time to get healthy. He's been one of the bright spots for the Bulls the past couple of years, one of the only reasons to watch the Chicago Bulls the last couple of years. And so hopefully he can get healthy and really be 100% for next year, when let's just all hope and pray that the lottery balls put Cooper Flagg in a Bulls uniform next season. Is that going to happen? Of course not. But regardless, thank you all for joining me today. Let me know your thoughts. Send me a message. Say something nice. If there's a certain type of content you guys want, let me know. Send a message. Again, this Morez Johnson topic was just discussed in the Discord earlier today. And I thought, this is something interesting that we can talk about on the show. So if you have a topic in mind or a question you want answered, let me know in the comments. Or you know what? For sure, leave me a 5-star review on your favorite audio platform with the question, and I guarantee you I will read that comment, because we need a couple more reviews on the audio side. So if you're not too busy and you want to help support the program, please, cost you guys absolutely nothing. I would really appreciate it if you did that. Until next time, ILL. Love you guys.